Hello, everybody, and welcome along to Season 4 of TGP Has a Podcast. We're back once again with yet more stories of trials and tribulations of TGP's finest caliber of drivers. We hope you've enjoyed the 3 series so far. We've got some fantastic names coming up again in this series. And this week, we start off with a man who has taken 2 TGP1 titles and is our current reigning TGP1 champion. It is, of course, Jack Hickman. We talk about his time in TGP1, TGP Xbox, very briefly touch on TGP FIFA, and we talk to Jack about just where he sees the league going, and also what he's enjoyed most about being part of such a popular series with the drivers throughout the Twitter Grand Prix series. So here he is, Jack Hickman, your reigning TGP1 champion. So, Jack, welcome along to TGP Has a Podcast. Obviously, you're quite a familiar face within the TGP paddocks now, and it's very good to have you along to join us in an episode of the podcast. We've been meaning to get you on here for quite some time. And not only that, you are reigning TGP1 champion, let's not forget. And that's quite an honour that you've achieved over your time during the TGP series and the history that you've been around with us. But let's rock it all the way back to the beginning. I mean, how did you come across it?
Well, yeah, firstly, Mike, thanks for having me. It's nice to be on this sort of platform instead of in a party swearing at anyone who hits me off. So yeah, it's nice to be here. Where it started really was it was 10 years ago this year, I think. I mean, it might even be this month actually. I
Yeah,
think I saw
January
a couple.
2013 was the first your
Yeah,
first
yeah.
appearance.
I saw a couple of tweets. I think it was from Paul McGuinness, maybe. I mean, I'd done a bit of league racing before, not too much, not something of this scale. And I saw a couple of tweets, I think, from Paul McGuinness, and he was obviously tweeting about this TGP series thing, and I was just like, "Oh, do they have an Xbox league?" And he went, "Yeah," and yeah, it sort of took off from there really, and I messaged Dom, and he said, "Yeah, he can race from the week after." So yeah, that's how it all got going.
And so it was obviously in season 2 of TGP Xbox when you came along. And you hit the ground running with a little bit of success, didn't you, really? How did you were you coming into that series thinking that you were going to be successful, thinking that you were going to have a chance? Where was your mindset in that?
Um, I don't think I really. Oh, it's that long ago now, but I don't really think I had any thoughts about winning if I was going to finish last. I thought it was just something to participate in. I mean, at the
Mm.
age I was at the time, we're talking, what, 16, 17 years old, I just wanted something to do outside of whatever I was doing during the day. And that was always a really good distraction, whether it be practicing for it, doing the races in general. I didn't really have anything in my head about where I wanted to finish in the league, but
Mm.
I just thought, well, who knows? We'll see what happens, and it was all right. I mean, I had quite a couple of good results in that season. Not really many stand out really because of how long ago it was, but they were all pretty consistent. I don't think podiums was really a thing for me back then. It was more like fourth, fifth, sixth, that sort of area, and it sort of stayed that way. Um, but yeah, I just went in there, tried to enjoy it, and whatever happened, and yeah, that's my mindset really.
And there were still sort of respectable results for you as obviously the experience that you'd had in league racing, but also in how you were going to be approaching the season, I guess. And that's something I guess you can certainly take away with. And you during that sort of time during CGP Xbox, became a very big character. I guess started to become a big character within TGP series. You claimed one race win, best finish of sixth overall in the championship, which actually was in your first series. But TGP Xbox did come to an end pretty swiftly. What was your overriding memories of when that stopped? Because suddenly you'd found this platform to compete in, enjoy your passion of racing games online, and
Yeah.
it comes to an end.
Um, I mean, it all happened probably in the space of about a year, so in time respective, like you say, it happened all pretty quickly and was done pretty quickly. Um, from what I can remember of it, really, I think a lot of us started bickering about, I don't know if it was lag, driving abilities, um, getting into stupid incidents, and I think it just eventually just started to boil over a little bit. Um, I think it's hard to name names, but there was probably two or three people who were heading that sort of argumentative case about awful driving and lag and all sorts. So
And
yeah,
you
I
think that
think
was
Dom.
prominent in TGP Xbox?
I wouldn't say it was prominent, no, because I mean, season three was unbelievable. Like one of the best sort of seasons of racing I'd done to that point, and obviously a lot of us talked in game chat anyway, and we all got along pretty well. But yeah, I think there just started a few cracks were starting to show maybe at the start of the season, and yeah, eventually I think people just said, "Oh, I've had enough of this." How it exactly decided to end, I can't remember. It was that long ago, but I don't know. I think Dom obviously figured out that this was going to be it, and then said, "Right, I think we did half a season, and then he called it season 4.2, and he's just said, right, 4.2, I don't know, but he just said, yeah, finish this off, and then that's going to be it. So yeah, I think by the time the last race came around, there was only like 7 drivers in it, and we were still all bickering then with the rest of them. So
Still more
yeah,
successful than TGP 3.5. Um,
well, yeah. So, but I really, as much as Dom thinks I absolutely hated TGP Xbox and all I do is moan about it, that's just a lie. I like if it wasn't for TGP Xbox, then I wouldn't be here now. So,
yeah.
I have to credit it a lot.
Well, on the subject of, leagues being created, let's not forget, you did play a little bit of a part in the creation of Apollo. Let's not forget with Brandon Feely.
Yes.
How did you find running a league in a different capacity rather than just competing in one? That was obviously quite a big change, and that came about quite quickly after having just started racing online as it was.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as soon as TGP finished, there was Pinnacle League afterwards, which another one of the Xbox drivers created, and we all sort of mingled in with that for a couple of seasons, especially like end of 2012 game into 2013, pretty much all the way through 2013 and beginning of 2014. Um, but yeah, I sort of tried. I ended up taking over Pinnacle a little bit towards the end because, again, I think people were just straying off doing other things. So I'd had a brief instance with that, seeing what it was like. I already knew it was difficult after that, to be honest. So what made me think of creating another league was pretty stupid. But anyway, we did. We was there. Me and Brandon still wanted to do it. I mean, he's one of my best mates who I've met through TGP Xbox. So we thought, yeah, let's do it.
And you still
Managed
speak
to
to him
get a
now?
Yeah, I mean, we've literally a couple of months ago just been to Abu Dhabi for the F1, so that's how much we keep in contact still. And yeah, it's brilliant to have a mate that's come off something like this as well, which you never sort of really expect. But yeah, we created Apollo. We managed to drag in a lot of people from the Xbox side. We were in TGP, like Sam Holloway, Elusive Kev. There was a couple of them that we managed to drag back in from there and get to join Apollo. I can't remember if Sarah Lane, Jordan Lane, I don't know if he'd moved over to PlayStation by then, but we might have got him too. And yeah, it was good. It was a nice experience. I think eventually for me, I sort of ended my association with it because me and Brandon are both quite strong-minded, so I would think of an idea and I thought it was brilliant, but then he'd think of another idea and he'd think that'd be brilliant. So we always clashed when we had that sort of thing. So I'd like you'd like design the website, think it's class, and then he'd go, "No, it's not." And then he'd do his, and I'm like, "No, I don't like that either."
Some
So
creative differences, shall we say?
yeah, if that's what you want to call it. But I mean, I've got no hard feelings. I just said, look, I think I'll step back from it. and then he took it over for maybe the last couple of seasons. But running a league's interesting. I'm sure Dom has plenty to say about running a league and how hard it is to keep people happy. And yeah, it's not as plain sailing as you'd like it to be. But it's a
Well, I
great
guess
experience.
people will always have their opinions on how it should be done, shouldn't they?
Exactly. But then they're not in the person's shoes who's actually running it. And then if they swapped, they'd probably see how difficult it actually is. But I don't think some people realise how hard it is to manage however many drivers you've got at a time. So yeah, good
So
fun.
you finally came over to the dark side, literally and metaphorically, I guess, in terms of making the switch to PlayStation
Yep.
and partaking in TGP1 for season 27 on F1 2016. How
Yep.
did you find the switch over initially to TGP1 and PlayStation, of course?
Um, I mean, obviously it was TGP, so I was like, it's somewhat familiar to me, but also I was thinking I don't actually know anyone really. So I mean, the only person potentially I would have known at that point again was Sailing. Um, but I found it difficult to be honest because it's basically like starting a brand new league again. You've got to familiarise yourself with what people drive like, what they're actually like as a person, if you can sort of trust them really, especially if you're going side by side. Um, and maybe especially in that first season, I think maybe I was a little bit erratic at times. Maybe made a couple of daft moves and on people, and I think people got on my back a little bit. I think Jack Pearson and Phil were quite vocal. I mean, even I think maybe Jean as well, but he's vocal about everyone, so I don't think that really counts. I were quite vocal about how crap I was racing side by side. So yeah, and I think once I finished that season, I mean, I did quite well. I finished fifth overall, so it's not as if I had a bad season. I just thought, I don't know if I fit quite in here yet. Um, so at that time, I was just like, maybe I don't want to carry on with it after this season for the time being. So I ended up stopping that and moving somewhere else and doing 50% races, somewhat different, which I quite enjoyed. Um, but yeah, I think the love for TGP was always still there, but I didn't think it didn't quite click in that season 27 for me.
Well, you did take a short break then, not long after that, from TGP racing again, before returning actually to the league, but to TGP2. You
Yes.
took a sole race win before making the move back up to TGP1. So your TGP2 career very short. What were your memories then of racing in TGP2? I mean, you talk about your quality coming into PlayStation racing and getting to grips with the characters and the sort of driving styles of those drivers, but then sort of regressing from that further and going to a league where the standard isn't as high and perhaps people are a little bit more unpredictable. How did you find
hmm
that?
Um, to be honest, I didn't find it that bad at the time because I mean the only reason I got back into it really was probably because of Brandon again, because he made the switch. He did TGP2 that season, and I was like, you know what? I fancy it all over again. Let's inquire about it. So I did, and obviously it was a reserve seat at the time because most of the season was done already. I think I managed to get into about 8 to 10 races, maybe. I think it was maybe only 8. But yeah, it was. I can't really say it was any different really to what it had been like before because again, didn't really know anyone. I didn't know what the quality was like in TGP2. There was a lot of good guys in there, like Kong Hoffner at the time, Alistair Bain, Chris Johnson. I mean, they're all respectable drivers at that time, and some of them still are now. So yeah, I mean, at the beginning, I didn't even bother qualifying. I just used to start at the back the first couple of races. My lag was absolutely terrible. So I'd probably last like half a race anyway and disconnect. But yeah, when I eventually got that sorted out, I enjoyed it, and then I started maybe like the last 5 races. I started doing the qualifying, and I think it was USA where I got my first win, and that was the first time I got pole. And I remember watching a clip on Joe's YouTube channel, and basically it comes up me getting pole, and they're all like, "What? What? How's he got pole? It's by pole by like 4 tenths. Where's that come from?" And I'm like, "Well, I did have it anyway." So yeah, at the beginning, I didn't really want to go and get in any people's way, especially when there was a title fight going on. But by the end, I mean, you're gonna have to censor this, but I was like, oh, "Fuck it, I don't care. I'm qualifying on pole, or going to qualify as best as I can, and I'll show them how good I actually am." So yeah, only the one win. Should have been two, but I misjudged the safety car restart at Abu Dhabi. Got a bit too close to it, and when I put my foot down, I lost the back end and dropped about 3 positions. Then hit Alistair Bainoff and got a penalty. So, yeah, that it wasn't really a good end to the TGP2 stint, but
Doesn't sound
obviously
like it.
No, I mean obviously I proved enough that Dom was like, "You're not staying in there, you're going up," even though I'd only done like 8 races. So yeah, that's how that sort of
Do you,
unfolded.
do you think that brief stint in TGP2 gave you the confidence when going back up into TGP1 though to think, right, I'm really going to give this a good go now. I've proved to myself that I've got it still there. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna really put some effort into it.
Honestly, I didn't really care, to be honest. I just thought, well, I don't know how quick these lot are. Again, it feels all new for me again because it's a new setup. But basically, the early seasons of TGP I didn't know anyone. I
Mm.
basically went into it not knowing anyone. Apart from obviously Xbox, where I did 2 seasons then. So I did a 1 season stint, then left, and then came back and did TGP2, and then was in TGP1. So that's 3 different times I've had to race 3 different sets of people. So again, I just went into it and I was like, I don't know how quick these are going to be. Probably quick, and I realised quite quickly that some of them are ridiculously fast. I can't remember who was racing at the time, but obviously there was Corey. I think he'd maybe just won a title, and he was just like so quick. I'm just like, what is going on here? What am I doing here? Matt Tibos, Softy from time to time. I'm not sure if he was there in the early stages of me being there, but yeah. So yeah, I had to adjust quite quickly, but I felt I sort of did that, and the consistency started to come soon after that, really.
And it took a little while then to get the first race win in TGP1, but it eventually came around in season number 35. Um, First race win came in China. Is that a circuit that you've always liked, always done well at?
I've it's always been it's a weird one really because my first ever win in Xbox was at China as well. So the fact that the first TGP1 win came at China as well was like quite, I don't know, symbolic in a way because it's
Mm.
like, oh, it was written that it was supposed
It
to
was
happen
going to
there.
happen. It was destiny.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, regardless of what happened to Softy in that race, I think someone took him out on the as he was trying to pit in. I think it was Court actually. So I owe Court plenty of pints. I think when I see him very soon
I think you're
for
going to
that.
have to.
Yeah. But yeah, and then after that, it all just fell into place. I had the pace. I had the pace from the start of the season. Towards the end of season 34, I sort of had the pace where I thought I'm starting to get up there now. And then the start of season 35, the pace just seemed to be there. I think I was very much in the top 5 from the get go. Not quite got that win yet, but obviously when China came, I think it was the perfect time to get that first win, and that really, I was like, at the time I couldn't believe it because I'm like, holy shit, I've just won in TGP1. It's been that bloody long since I've won in the highest division in a TGP event. Yeah, it was a big gap in between, but yeah, finally I'd done it, and hopefully that was the time when I could finally progress and go a bit further. And obviously, sitting here now, obviously ended up that way. But yeah, it was nice to start off with that first win, especially at China.
Well, it took just one season after your first victory to be in a title battle. So it was season 36. You're up against Ryan McLaughlin, PSN name VFR Glock for any of you who don't know who Ryan is. Tell us about that, because that was really quite some battle with him across season 36. How did you find, first of all, being in that sort of scenario for the first time, but also being up against somebody quite like that?
I mean, going into the season, I didn't think win a title. Like I finished second to Softy the season before, but I still thought I'm not quite there yet. There's still like so much more to get out the car. Um, but yeah, I just started stringing the results together early on. Like the start of the season was quite poor actually. I mean, my results were sort of consistent, but they were not consistently there for winning a title, like at all.
Hmm.
And then it started all just falling into place a little bit. I got the first win in Holland, and then it quickly followed by a couple of podiums and a couple of bad results for Ryan, and all of a sudden I was just in it. I like out of nowhere, especially when he was so fast. His qualifying pace, especially that season, was just ridiculous. Like sometimes he'd qualify half a second ahead of you, and you're just like, how on earth has he done? A bit like Softy, really. Every time you see Softy race, it's the same. So I was like, well, if I just keep my stuff together, I've got a really good chance here. And yeah, I just don't know what came over me. Like in that second half of that season, it was just I was just on it. Like I was on it in qualifying every race. I was on it in the race all the time, and I'm like, my God, I might actually win this if I keep it like this. Because I knew Ryan was prone to making a mistake from time to time. So
Hmm.
I knew if I keep pushing him and pushing him and pushing him, he's going to crack. And eventually he did. And yeah, it was such a like massive. Some of the battles we had were ridiculous. I think Spain, USA when I overtook him on the last lap of the race. Canada, I overtook him with like one corner to go. Um, yeah, it was just mental. Like to be honest, I can't thank him enough because if he didn't push me as much as he did, I don't think I'd have won that title at all because I knew I had to make sure I was at my best abilities to beat him. And obviously, when I eventually crossed the line in Saudi Arabia to win the title, I was like, I wouldn't say emotional, but I was like, I can't believe it. Like, I've been
Was there a
here
sense of
for,
relief as well, do you think?
uh, I think so, because obviously there's a stigma. I've been in TGP at that point for what 8, 9 years, and I'm like,
Mm.
I've still not really won anything. And like, I've only had a couple of race wins at the time, and even in TGP one before the start of the championship winning season, I already had one win. So to come out of that with 8 wins, I think it was, and to win the title, I just couldn't believe it really. And yeah, there was a couple of onions in the room, I think, because I was just like, I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it. Like I never thought this would happen, and here I am
And it's
now.
quite a major title as well. Let's not forget, it is the creme de la creme in the TGP series. It's not like winning a TGP2 title because although it's still quite prestigious, that's
Yeah,
the championship. TGP is the Premier League, and
yeah,
that's obviously played on your mind, I guess, to a certain degree when winning that and coming up against such a fierce competitor like Glock. That probably made it all the more satisfying, I can imagine.
yeah. It was satisfying knowing that I'd had to work for it, and I didn't win this. I mean, the distance at the end was quite big because he had quite a poor last 2 races of the season, I think. So the gap is bigger than probably how close it actually was. But believe you me, I've never sweated so much in all my life trying to race him because you literally have to be on your A game, and if you're not, he'd punish you. So, and he made me learn a couple of times across the season about I think it was Mexico keeping his ERS right to the last lap of Mexico and overtaking me on the main straight. And I'm like, why didn't I think of that? I should have knew that. Like he played the book on me there, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take that and I'm going to use that further down the line. And it happened again in Spain, and I was a bit more wise to it this time. So I managed to keep him behind for the last lap of Spain before he made a mistake. And I'm like,
Oh, good
yeah,
on.
I played you there. And I was like, I think I've got this. I've got this now. So, but yeah, I can't speak more highly of Brian, to be honest, because he's absolutely rapid on his day, and the fact he's not won a title yet is surprising me, to be honest. But hopefully, eventually for him, he'll be up there, and as long as I finish ahead of him. If I don't finish ahead of him, then I won't begrudge him if he did win a title.
And it was obviously a bit of a baptism of fire. You're tied to a defence then all of a sudden. You were up against arguably the greatest driver that TGP has ever had.
Scene.
Let's seen, had, whatever. Let's not beat around the bush.
Yeah.
How did it feel? And this I don't know how you'll take what I'm about to say, but to a certain degree, I guess you were a bit humbled by Softy all of a sudden in the next season. How did you feel with that?
I wasn't that bothered, to be honest, because
But
as soon
do
as
you think that's because you'd taken the title the year before? Had Glock beaten you, would
mm,
you have felt differently?
well, there's no point in thinking about that because I won the title, so let's leave that like that. But it's, I mean, when I came into that season and I knew, well, Softy didn't start it, but then as soon as he said, "Well, I'm going to do it fully now," I'm like, I'm not winning this. I'm not winning this. There's no way on earth I'm going to be able to keep him back for 20, 22, 20 races. I did my best. I mean, I had quite a good start to oh no, I had a shocking first two races, but after that, I had quite a good start. So I managed to hold him up for quite a long time.
Hmm.
And then I think it was Austria, which we'll go there in a minute. Austria and Silverstone, where I got taken out both races, and then that was it. I think he clawed pretty much all the gap back then, and maybe a bit more. And I was like, I'm never going to get this back now, because I had that buffer, and I was trying to keep that buffer, but because of what happened in them two races, I lost it. So yeah, but yeah, Phil, for God's sake, took me out in Austria when I was in the prime position to beat Softy in that race, and I wouldn't have been that mad at him, but the fact he did it the year before as well, the season before, I was like, Phil, really? Do you have to do this now? Just as I'm about to get the win, you take me out. And I would have won the other time if he didn't take me out as well. And the funny thing is when he did take me out, he was like, "Oh, sorry, it's me again." I'm like, "Really? I don't know
So
what
you've
to
had a
say to
few
you right
run-ins
now."
with Phil in your career, shall we
A
say?
couple, yeah.
Why do you think that is? Is it just the sort of the driving styles that you've got, perhaps do clash a little bit? I mean, you seem to get on fine personally. There's no problems there. So why is it that when you come together on track, it does seem to more
I,
often than
I,
not end in a collision?
I don't know. I don't know. I look back at it now, and I just found it funny. Well, it's a good bloody job I did win one title then, because if I didn't, then I would have been pissed off with him. But I get Phil's great. Like, look, everyone loves Phil. Probably apart from Pearson because he keeps calling him old. But yeah, we clash on tracks sometimes. It's not all the time. To be fair, the only two times we probably hit each other is them two times. It just so happened to be Austria twice. So I think the fact that it was Austria twice means I just bully him about it all the time. But
Do you reckon it's the Vienna
really,
airport that does something to you both?
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's probably the fresh air that Phil's getting. Maybe not used to it. I don't know. But
I don't think they have much in
yeah,
the nursing home.
no, I don't think so. Someone's letting him loose in an F1 car in Austria. I don't know why they do that. But yeah, it's literally like the only time he's hit me is then. So I don't have a problem with Phil. And to be fair, I like racing him because every other time is clean. So we have the odd run in, but who doesn't? Who doesn't?
It's all part of the camaraderie, isn't it?
If that's what you want to call it. Not,
And so then your season with Softy, he obviously took the title, took away your TGP1 crown. And then we came to season 38, and you had what was quite an entertaining season, actually. You came out the blocks so well, and you hit the ground running, and it seemed like it was going to be a formality. But all of a sudden, you were embroiled with a bit of a battle with not only Kieran but Dan the Man, who was sort of coming back on form, and
Yeah.
also Roy. Out of nowhere. Let's not forget you had Odems coming back halfway through the season. There was suddenly quite a cast in this performance, and it just seemed to tail off as the season got on. But why do you think it was that you were able to come out of the blocks so quickly?
Honestly, I've absolutely no idea. Right. I was doing sprint races with a couple of them before the season started as the game came out, and I was like, I'm nowhere. I am nowhere here. I keep making mistakes. My pace is not. I mean, I was comparing it to Roy at the time, and Roy looked really good straight out the blocks, and I'm like, I'm a bit worried here. Um, but yeah, like the first couple of races were it just fell into place so well. Like, I mean, it did help first race of the season, Roy taking like three of the top runners out and basically helping me completely out in that race. I mean, Kieran probably would have won it if he didn't drop it behind me. But again, I was the one who stayed on the road and finished it off. Then there was Australia and Miami, which I won quite comfortably. And yeah, it was just a really good start. The problem I had was Kieran kept tagging me back. It was like I won one, he won one, I won one, he won one. I was like, please leave me alone, let me get a gap. But he wouldn't. So yeah, that was annoying at the beginning. But then I started to pull a bit of a gap out. I think it was after Miami. And then yeah, a couple of people just started up in the game a little bit. Like my last win, I think, was Canada, and I looked into that as well. Court was all over me for however many laps it was, 18 laps. And then Kieran thankfully dropped it, so I won the race. Like, if it weren't for that, I definitely wouldn't have won it. Um, but yeah, I just dropped off. Like I couldn't. The setups on this new game, I just couldn't really grasp them, to be honest.
Hmm.
And yeah, I just ended up falling back, and all I was just kept thinking to myself was, right, because of me, the gap me and Kieran had pulled out. I was just like, I've just got to beat him. If I keep beating him regularly, then I should be okay. And that's sort of what happened, really. I
Well, the
managed
first
to,
couple of races, it was one win to you, one win to Kieran, one win to you, one win to Kieran, and
yeah,
that's sort of how the season started, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah. And then after that, I mean, even Kieran's pace dropped off, but probably not as much as mine did. So I was just hanging on for dear life the second half of the season, especially with the likes of, I mean, Roy was ridiculously fast, but if you got stuck behind him in a race, you could not get past him because he's so good at defending. Um, I just couldn't get every like three races I was stuck behind, and I'm like, God, get out the way, please. I could be doing so much better, but it's the game, and he his starts were so good as well. You just couldn't keep him behind on a start unless he was like 5 places back. So yeah, it tailed off at the end, but I think the consistency that I have had for the last, well, since I came back to TGP1 really has just kept me in it. Like finishing fourth, finishing fifth, sixth, all in that area, pretty much every race kept me in that title fight. And thankfully, other people made mistakes, and that allowed me to just keep the gap chugging along. And yeah, double double champion. And I mean, it felt sweet. I don't think it felt as sweet as the first one, but it felt good
Do you
because I
think it
was
didn't
like,
feel as sweet because the form wasn't there throughout the whole of the season? It was you did sort of tail off a little bit, and as you said, no logical explanation to it, but the form tailed off. So do you
yeah,
think that was why you didn't enjoy it as much, or it didn't feel quite as good?
I don't think so. I think the first one I'd have been happy with one. I'd have really been happy with one. So the second one is just a bonus. So that's probably why I wasn't as excited as such about the second one
Mm.
because the first one was so special in itself. Like I'd had a season-long battle at the front with someone, and I came out on top. That felt amazing. So yeah, maybe there was a part of it where, because I wasn't so quick, I was maybe panicking in races, thinking I cannot get involved in any tangle. It was more of a relief probably than it was actually excitement of winning it.
Mm.
Because I was like, thank God, because if I'd have bottled it, I don't think I'd have made the end of it. So yeah, I'm just happy. I'm happy I got it done, but definitely not as sweet as the first one.
How do you feel knowing that your brothers are racing in the series?
At first, I was like, initially when Sam asked me, I was like, "There's no way you're ready for this yet. There's no way. There's no way." Like even when I said to Dom, "Can he do it?" and he said, "Yeah." Whereabouts is he on the grid? I'm like, I don't know, 10th, 11th. And they did his first two races, and I think he qualified like fifth or fourth in one of the races, and I'm like, right. So I may have got that wrong slightly. Uh, and then like all of a sudden, he had a lot of difficult competition that season as when he first joined. I think it was you, there was Jack Pearson, there was Chiapelli, there was Moss, it was a hefty TGP2 grid that season.
Mm.
And he held his own. I mean, again, made a couple of mistakes, but you're so young, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to get annoyed, and you're going to overdrive it probably. But yeah, it was strange. It was a strange feeling for me. It was strange, especially seeing Sam first get into it and then Theo afterwards. It was so weird. Like I felt more happy for them if they won a race than I did if I won, which
Did
is strange, but yeah.
And so, obviously, the Hickman School of the Hickman Driver Academy, was producing some good talent. Were you also able to give them some tips, some guidance?
Well, at first it was just like, "Can I nick your setup?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I can't do nothing about that." So they didn't really know much about the setup wise, so it was sort of explaining to them what the setups do, and if you change a couple of things, how it makes the car feel a little bit different. And eventually they pick that up by themselves and they change whatever they like, because sometimes they might go, "Oh, well, the back end's a bit looser than what I like," and I said, "Well, just put some more rear wing on, or um, lift the ride height up a little bit." And eventually they picked that up themselves and they didn't ask the questions. But initially, yeah, they did answer the questions, ask the questions. Sorry. So, which I'm glad they did, because if they didn't and they went and messed the race up, then it's not nice, is it? So,
No, and I suppose
yeah,
you wanted to give them the right guidance to help them do it. As you said, you were you were just as excited as for them being successful than you were for your own success. So you
yeah.
wanted to do that not only for them, but to give you some gratification from it as well. I can imagine.
Uh, I didn't want no gratification. I didn't want any of that, because it's not me who's doing the races at the end of the day. It's them. It's a pressure cooker when you get into a race. You know what it's like. It's all right doing practice laps and crashing every now and again and go, I won't do that in the race. But in the race, you'll do it, and you'll be like, damn, I wish I'd have just maybe done something else and made sure I was actually all right before I got in the race. And obviously, you're racing with all the other competitors as well, so you've got to make sure that you're on your A game. You can't slip your mind for a second, especially. And then for a younger kid, we're talking 12, 13 years old, both of them at the time, to have that level of concentration to be
Hmm.
able to do a race is quite a lot to take in. So yeah, I didn't want no gratification from it at all. It's at the end of the day, it's not me who's racing the car; it's them.
And how happy were you when Theo won his title?
Mate, you do not understand how excited again, I was more excited for him winning it than I was. And the annoying thing was I won it the day before, and I'm like, he's literally done one season, he's already won a title. And look at me, it took me 8 years. But yeah, I mean, I was I was there watching him do it, and it was probably, I mean, it was the mentalist end to a TGP season I've ever
Oh, it's
seen.
incredible.
We'll probably see ever. And he just kept his head. Like I was watching him. I'm like, I can't believe how concentrated he is, because I think there was a couple of people out there who's, especially with Theo, like taking the mick, saying he's not good enough or he makes too much mistakes. But people don't realise that when you're so young and when you're doing it for the first time, you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna misjudge your breaking point. You're gonna maybe go for a move and maybe think you're gonna make it, but in reality you was never gonna make it. And I think he got picked on a little bit by one or two people for that. So when it came to that last race, and he was so calm, cool, collected, both races, and it was a wet Imola qualifying as well, and he'd not been done very well in the wet, and he managed to get on pole for both races and see it out. I couldn't have been prouder of him then. It was such a nice moment for him, and it was like a nice moment for me as well, because I was like, you've deserved that. You've deserved that all season, because you've got the pace. You had a rough ride, a couple of people niggling at you now and again, and you stuck through it and you saw it out and you got this championship. So, yeah, I'm buzzing for you, and that's how I like to think of it. Again, I was more excited for him than I was me winning a title. So, absolutely.
I can imagine he was pretty excited for himself, though.
It was quite mute, to be honest. Afterwards,
What's all this Hickman sort of subdued, self-appreciation? Where's the bit of excitement? Where's the punching the wall and excitement? You should have holes all around the house. Where's it gone?
Well, when I won the title, there was. I mean, I was shouting like, get in, but not much else, right? When he won the title, me and Sam were dancing all over the living room, and he's just sat there like, yeah, I've won it, yeah. He was so down to earth about it, and I'm like, yeah, fair play. We'll be excited for you. So, yeah, that was a good night. I won't forget that in a hurry. Just like us three, well, me and Sam being there and watching it, and then him sat there doing his thing. It was a great night. That really good.
And are there any other sort of Hickman siblings that we're sort of waiting to see on the grid? Obviously Mummy and Daddy Hickman have probably had enough by now, but is there some cousin or something that's being hidden away?
I don't bloody know. They have to ask the about 20 cousins that I've got, so I don't think many of them are actually that interested in F1. So I'm like, maybe I can drag one or two in. We'll have to wait and see, but I'm happy with 3 of us being in there. We don't need any more.
Well, you need to get Sam a title now, don't you? One way or another, whether it's F1 or in another series. You never know, perhaps he'll take TGP GT by storm. Because let's not forget, it's not just on F1 that you've had success within TGP. You were very prominent in TGP FIFA. Let's not forget about that. In your you finished second in your sole season in TGP FIFA, only losing out to Bullet for the season 6 title. But he prolific FIFA player, very good at it as well. Do you think that he just had that slight edge over you, or do you think you could have taken it to him perhaps with a little bit more effort or playing slightly differently?
Mike, I'll be honest, I cannot remember that season at all. I can't remember the group, I can't remember the knockouts, and I can't remember the final. So what I'm going to say is I was robbed.
It's the only logical explanation, isn't it, really, in that
exactly.
sense?
I mean, it floats around all the time how good Bullet was as a FIFA player. So to lose to him, I've not got too much issue with. But if I could remember the score, and if it was like 2-1, I'd just go, yeah, I was robbed. I should have won. So that's what I'm going to go with.
We'll go with that. We'll run with that. Dom, when you're listening to this back, we're going to run that as the main thing of the show. Jack Hickman was robbed of that TGP FIFA title.
Exactly.
But looking away, you've taken part in TGP GT. You're now in TGP Pro clubs as well. What are your overriding sort of thoughts of the TGP series? It's so broad. Are you pleased that it's as broad as it is, or do you wish that it could sort of narrow itself back to being predominantly Formula One?
I just love being a part of this like group. There's so many people, and there's like a core group of us who talk a lot, play games a lot, and you can't take that away. So the fact I do like GT and all these other things, It's just because I like TGP and I like the group of people that there is in TGP. GT, I am so bad at that game, but I'm not bothered because I'm just in a I'm in a race with loads of people I know who are going to be respectful, and I'm like, you know what? Let's go for it. Let's see what happens. I'm not bothered about results. We'll just go with the flow, and I'll just enjoy the night. Um, and yeah, that's how. And then that's how it's been really since I won the first TGP one title. I was so stressed about that first title, and once I've got it, I've just been quite relaxed. Like even in that second title, I was quite relaxed. Apart from the couple of times maybe I got taken out, but that's just normal. That's just adrenaline. So yeah, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything because the group of people are just amazing.
And as we've been over as well, you've partaken in a lot of other leagues other than just TGP series. Where do you think that those other leagues perhaps haven't quite been as successful in TGP? Because as we heard in the last couple of minutes, you've absolutely loved your time here. Why do you think that those other leagues haven't quite been able to do what TGP series has done?
Um, I mean, TGP was basically the start for me. Like, I did a league before that, but it didn't really count for much for me. I was just playing with one mate, like doing it now and again. So it wasn't like the start for me. I think TGP was the start for me, and the fact I've kept coming back because it was the start, and I know it. So that's why I wanted the longevity to stay with TGP rather than anywhere else. And again, it's been the best league I've been in because of the people that are in it, and Dom for running it the way he does. So I can only thank everyone that's been in TGP the last 10 years. I can't thank them enough because it's been a big part of my life. So, and if TGP wanted my life, I'd be like, well, God, I'd be boring. So, I can't thank it enough.
So, Jack, it's been a pleasure talking to you, but we're going to go, as we usually do, through our quick fire questions at the end of this episode of the podcast. So, if you don't mind, we're gonna get cracking
Let's go.
with a few just sort of quick questions, quick answers. So, first things first, favorite Formula One game.
Formula One game, I would say 2012 is just the go. It's just the
It's
go.
the classic Formula
Yeah,
One game.
yeah.
Favorite track you've ever raced on, any game?
Favorite track, I will say I like Portimao. I mean, I'm not particularly good at it. I mean, I've won a race round there, but just the ebb and flow. When as soon as they put that in the I can't remember what game it was now. 2021.
21, wasn't it?
Yeah.
2021.
Well, as soon as they put it in there, I was like, this is class, and I don't even care if I'm rubbish at it. This is such a nice track. So yeah, I'll go Portimao.
Least favorite track any game ever
Aus-
raced on.
Austria.
Is that
I
just because of
like Aust-
Phil?
75% of it's Phil. 25. Yeah, I've never been quick round there. Never ever been quick. And when I have been quick, I've been taken out by Phil. So yeah, Austria.
Who's your most favorite person to race against?
Oh, one's difficult. So I'm gonna say there's probably three main ones. I'd say Dan the Man, Phil when it's not Austria, and I'd say Aiden as well. We've always had that sort of mutual respect because we've been teammates for a long time, and even when we're not in the same cars, we still respect each other. So yeah, I'm gonna say them three. I'm gonna say them three.
Least favorite person to have raced against?
I mean, there's an obvious one, but I'm gonna say Jake Davies because every time I race Jake Davies, he's smashing into me, I'm smashing into him. He's gone off, I've gone off. So yeah, probably Jake Davis. No hard feelings or anything, but it's always Jake Davis. It's either him or CJH, but CJH is the obvious one for most people. So no hard feelings, but yeah, Jake Davies.
And lastly, if for any game that might be in production, out at the moment, any series that might not have even a game yet, what would you like there to be a TGP league of in the future?
If IndyCar happens, I want to see it. I want to see it. TGP Indy. Let's
Well,
go.
there's a gauntlet, Dom. You're
Yeah,
two-time TGP1 champion. Your reigning TGP1 champion wants to move to IndyCar if there is a game. There you go. Take note, Mr. Smith.
indeed.
Um, well, Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for taking time out of your afternoon, Saturday afternoon, to talk to me. And it's been a great pleasure actually having you on. We had some really good chats, really good stories as well. We've been hearing. So, obviously, any last words that you've got before the end of the podcast before we sign off?
Not really. Just appreciate for having me on. Obviously, going through everything that I've done in TGP, which is a bloody lot. Um, and I'll reiterate again. Just thank you to all the people I've raced with because you're what make TGP great. So let's keep it going for another whatever season we're on next. 39. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going.
Excellent stuff. Well, Jack, once again, thank you very much for coming on and joining us. It's
No
been a
problem.
pleasure chatting to you. We're going to see you on the track again very soon when TGP1 returns. What are we? When this episode will come out, it'll be in just 5 days' time. Can you finally defend your title? We'll find out. So there we have it. What a great chat we had with Jack Hickman. It was really lovely to get the chance to sit down and chat to him properly. A man who is very passionate about the TGP series and all that it stands for, and very privileged, he feels, to have been a part of it for as long as he has and had the success that he's done as well. It was really lovely to get Jack's insights on just what goes on behind the Hickman household with him and his brothers as well. It was lovely to hear the stories of him and his brother celebrating Theo's title. Next week, we've got something slightly different. It's going to be your host who is in fact being asked the questions when Dom Smith stands in for my good self as I talk about all my time in TGP series and the controversies that have gone with it, unfortunately for my sake. We look forward to seeing you next week on TGP Has a Podcast. Good night.